the people that do something more real difficult, even at the level of like, I've never ran a 5K, so I'm going to go run a 5K. That feeling of completion of running a 5K, a Spartan race, going through a selection process, all the dumb, hard shit that I've done in my life, I was actually the most rewarded and most happy with the hardest, like when I have my whole feet are just one blister. You know, I can barely walk. My back is jacked. I'm sunburnt, dehydrated, and I get done. I'm like, I feel amazing.
I was listening to one of your podcasts. It was really cool because you were talking about, you said you're not easily controlled. And I was listening to how one of the hardest things for you when you were a leader and you had established yourself, but you still had a lot of people that were above you, as most of us always do, especially in a rank and file system like the military.
Right.
But when you knew something was wrong, you had no problem in saying, dude, you're going to get people killed. Things are not going to go the right way. Tell me about, has this been always how you were growing up? You always just stood up for something that you saw clearly for, or was it something you built confidence in as you grew?
So I think at some level it was a part of me. It was just a part of my personality. We've always met that one asshole, the one jackass that's like, God, I wish he would just shut up. You know, that was probably me as a kid. But it wasn't obnoxious. I was always questioning, and maybe it was because of the way I grew up and kind of how, you know, what my structure was. But I was definitely always questioning everything, almost to a fault. I probably didn't do it quite as tactfully as I've been able to do it now, but because it's something that you develop, right, over a period of time. So that's really, I think I was just kind of haphazardly doing it as a young man. And then as I've gotten older, it's been much more, I would say even in the military, it was probably haphazardly because it was just a lot of emotion and a lot of anger and a lot of, you know, but now in the last 10 years, I would say it's much more tactfully, much more thought out and with intention.
Like refinement. It's almost like it becomes refined. They say, you know, our greatest strengths turned up too loud are our blind spots. So your ability to stand up in a crowd, stand out in a crowd, ask questions nobody else will ask is a great strength. But if it's all emotional, I'm the same way. It will become, if I let emotions lead the conversation, I'm not going to not say it, but I just didn't think through how the second and third level results might be.
That's it. That's what I always say. If you look at like asymmetrical warfare, what is the second and third order effects of everything that you do, right? You do something, you put that water bottle down and you walk away. Now your staff or your wife or somebody's got to come up and clean after, you know what I mean? So everything that we do has a second and third order effect. So initially, like in the military, I mean, I'm very upfront and open. I was very angry as I went on in my military career. I became more grumpy, more angry, more disgruntled. So when I did those things, I wasn't always thinking about, well, how can I word this? How can I say this? How can I identify a problem? And then do so in a way that it has the most positive outcome for myself and my team.
Right.
It was more like, this is a problem. You're a jackass. You're going to get people killed. So I'm going to identify it and throw it all on the table. So I'm going to throw all this garbage on the table and then for everybody to look at it. And that's pretty much it.
Well, it's really a maturation in general. I know early in my career, I described my mentality was I was laying on the ground and I was punching up at the world. Everybody was against me. Yeah. And once I figured out that like it was a mental shift, but I mean, once you figure out that the more you give, you don't have to take anything. The more you're honest and authentic and vulnerable and without being weak. So I'm not.
Yeah, that takes experience and time. That's the reason why, like, you know, you see the young 25-year-old that's like ready to throw hands and the 45, 50-year-old's like, I don't really need to do that. This is a self-correcting problem. I don't need, and that's a lot with me now. I look at problems. I'm like, and I talk to my team. I'm like, guys, just so you know, this is a self-correcting issue that we don't have. This will correct itself without us even having to get involved.
Just having the patience, though, to let it sit is something that takes maturity and time, because that's hard. Like having the patience to say, let's just not act at all yet. Let's see how this turns out for the and because if we don't do that, we could actually be creating a second and third level problem.
Exactly. Like now you're going to stir the pot. And, so I always look at things like that. So in any sort of situation, whether it come down to even a conversation, like every relationship gets into spats, right? Me and my wife just had a spat. And so when we do that, when we get into those spats, right, you can get real emotional and go back and forth and like, what are you really achieving? Or you can sit back and go, okay, how can I communicate? Even if on a selfish level, how can I communicate to where for me as a husband, I have the most positive outcome for me, or the most positive outcome for this situation, right? And one of the things we just recently talked about on our most recent podcast. And so because that's an intentional move. That's what I call a branch plan, right? Like we're going to have this conversation. You and I are going to have this conversation. And no matter where you take it, I'm being so intentional about the words that I say that I can work it back to the thing that I want to talk about. Right. Yep. But that's, like you said, that's being patient. That's being thoughtful. That's not just as being logical. I'm not letting my emotions drive the conversation, so that with anything, any problem, any conversation, anything you have, how can you react or communicate so that we have the most positive outcome for ourselves?
Yeah, it's hard in marriage.
I don't think most people do that.
Yeah, it's hard in marriage too, because you actually start to accumulate too much data. So it becomes paralysis by analysis sometimes. Yeah. In a relationship, when you've been together a long time, you know how someone's going to react before they do. So sometimes in relationships, you avoid things on purpose because you know it's going to create a problem that doesn't need to be had. And then other times people will actually, hit it head front, and they're thinking that you're going to respond a certain way, but you don't respond that way at all. And it throws each other off. And because we mature and grow together.
Exactly. And the thing is, for either young relationships or unhealthy relationships, I would challenge you, those things that you say, well, I don't want to bring this up because it's going to be a problem. Well, then those problems are always there. Just by not bringing it up doesn't mean the problem doesn't exist.
Right.
You need to handle that problem. That's a monkey on your back that's going to be there. And the problem with those things is they are going to continue to grow like a cancer. So that's how you build resentment. That's how you lose trust. And it could be a simple little thing that happened a long time ago, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. That it is what it is. And I challenge you that if it is one of those things, they're like, well, I don't like bringing this subject up because, I know what's going to happen. Well, then you need to bring it up, but you need to bring it up into a way to a way to be able to communicate that to have a positive outcome, or even say that, hey, I want to talk about this, but I want to talk about this in a way that we have a positive outcome together.
Yeah, even empathizing.
I don't want to do the same thing. I don't want to have this conversation and get to the same result that we've had 50 other times. Like, how do we change the narrative of this to where, and maybe it is, a lot of men, I was having this conversation with a business partner the other day, is, the whole ownership thing. Everything's your fault. Just imagine, own it. Imagine everything is your fault. And I look at that with my employees. If I'm having a problem with an employee, I go, okay, granted, you can take it back to the Marine Corps, right? Like say you're a team leader and one of your guys goes out, you're at home, and this literally has happened to me. I don't even know how many times. I'm at home with my wife and kids in bed at 2 a.m. One of my guys is like doing donuts on the interstate, drunk as hell, with 3 strippers in the car, you know what I mean? And then gets busted. And then all of a sudden in the morning, I'm getting called into the CEO and sergeant major, the ops chief or whatever, to be like, hey, what the hell, Nick? I'm like, dude, I'm at home with my kids. What? I'm not there to I wasn't there. I didn't talk to him, but with wisdom and time, I go, okay, yes. Am I at fault? Technically, directly, no. But then what did I fail as a leader to get him to think that was a good idea? Or what could I have done better or poured into him to inspire him, motivate them, instruct them to not make bad decisions and make better decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So every single situation, I don't care what it is, that revolves around your life, you have a level of ownership that you can take. So like going back to a relationship. All right. Just imagine everything's your fault. Whether it is or not, it doesn't matter. Everything is your fault. And if you start thinking that way, your actual actions can change, because you're like, well, I'm responsible for this situation regardless. So let me make the best possible decisions and the best possible moves for the most positive outcome.
Yep. It also creates a way for you to move past challenges and forks in the road a little bit better. When you acknowledge how the role you played in everything, it allows you to see from the other person's eyes some of the things that you're not able to if we're just blaming. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious just from the beginning of our conversation, we're not the people that believe in victimhood. We believe in creating a way to be a victor, not a victim. And victimhood seems to be, it seems to be a lot more victim mentality nowadays than anything. It's what you did to me, not what you did for me. It's not that I get to do this, it's that I have to do this. Everything is a framing. So how do you help yourself in your businesses? You have a multitude of businesses, and for the listeners out there, give everybody just an idea of a couple of the businesses that you run. So, because I know you bring a nice assortment of experience, from the military experience to running successful businesses. You've been able to really take your military background and transition effectively. And so that's something we'll talk about in a little bit, but just on which I know you're passionate about, but tell me about the business.
It's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, because the way you say it, it makes it sound so fluid and perfect and awesome. And it's simply not, it was simply not that at all. It was actually far from that.
So what was it like? Tell us that, and then we'll go back to my question, because my question can wait. Tell me what that was when I said that, and you thought, what were you thinking in that moment?
I was just thinking of just me being such an idiot and just a shithead. I got out of the military, and you have this, you enter this stage of kind of like excitement and euphoria, because you leave, whether it's retirement or you leave or you graduate from this thing, you have this stage of excitement, thinking that things are going to be so awesome. So for instance, let's just use the military as an example. You leave the military, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be free, And for those of you weren't in the military, you might not fully understand, but you've got some freedoms, but really your life is just not your own, and it's hard. I make the joke in the book, like it's like being in prison, and it's, yes, you're not locked up in a 8x8 cell, but there's a lot of correlations between the two, right? The way that you live your life, the way that the food you eat. Yes, you can go home with your family, but your vacations aren't yours. Your dress isn't yours. Your look isn't yours. Whether you want to be successful or not, kind of not really up to you either. It's just kind of like you're a cog in the wheel, even at the special operations level. Yeah, you can apply yourself and you can do good, but your life just isn't your life. It's being dictated by others. And that's just the fact of it. So when you get out, you have this overwhelming overwhelming feeling. I'm sure you did too, that it was like, oh my God, it's on me now. I'm free. I can make decisions. I can get up. I can not get up. I can work out. I can not work out. I can shave, not shave. It doesn't really matter. It's on me. So that first initial wave of excitement is there. Obviously that's like the first, and it's like the quickest, shortest stage ever, because then you get into real life and you're like, oh shit, it really is on me.
So just a quick aside, when I came out, I actually went to MEPS and was going to join the Marines and go in their JAG program, right? And I remember going to MEPS. I never went in, but I've been in the financial services industry in Norfolk and in this area for 20 plus years. So I have worked with so many transitioning military people that I understand because I've sat in the room with their spouses when the spouse is like, dude, I don't know what to do with this person. Like he or she is not who used to be here. Or I have all this freedom, but I have no freedom because everything I did was disciplined. And When I went to MEPS, I remember going to MEPS. I was 21. I had gotten out of college early, and I remember walking in Beckley, West Virginia, and I'm in like this is the 90s, by the way, but boxer briefs. I'm there with a bunch of 17-year-old kids in their tidy whities. The first time they've ever been away from their parents. They're having us do all these exercises. I remember calling my dad and being like, "Dad, they're even mean at MEPS. Like I thought at least they'd want to sell me on being a part of this." And he's like, "Yeah," he goes, "They don't give a damn about you." And I went, I don't know. I really don't like being told what to do that much. And I called my uncle who was had a very great military career and was did jumps and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I remember him telling me, "Scott, I had no choice when I was 17. It was the best choice for me in the world. It directed me and disciplined me towards my future." And he said, "I think you would be good going in a different direction." And so I ended up not, but I've always had this utmost respect, and I understand it in a different way because so many of my best friends, people that I've been around with, high performers in the Navy SEALs and special ops and all the circle that I'm in have all been in it. But I usually serve on the other side where I'm the coach or the transition specialist. And I know you are a transition specialist. You wrote the 7 stages of transition.
Yeah. So that's kind of the issue right there. You kind of nailed it. And it doesn't really matter whether you were the military or not, because if you live long enough, you go through chapters in your life will change. And that's kind of where it happens. And it everything from a firefighter or a police officer. You have a long career as a financial advisor and that ends for some reason.
Yeah.
You got to start over a career. Like if you live long enough, we become what we do. So if I'm using like special operations as an example, I was a Marine Raider, or we have buddies that were Navy SEALs. That's who they are. That's not just what they do, but it's who they are. Same thing with a cop. Same thing with a mother who's a stay-at-home mom for 20 years. That's what she is. That's what she's done. That's part of her identity. So now you have this excitement, but then you leave and then you start having this identity crisis. Well, if I'm not this guy, if I'm not this thing anymore, then what am I? What are my core beliefs? What are my morals? And all the things that kept you, moving, like you said, very highly disciplined and routine. Now it's on you. And then guys start to lose that. They think that they did all the hard stuff and now it's supposed to be the fun times.
Yeah.
And the reality is, it's the hard times that was making them happy. And we can get into that later. But nonetheless, it really comes down to an identity crisis of like, well, if I'm not this thing, then who am I? And they have to refigure that out.
You bring up a really interesting point that I think is worth exploring. And so one of the things that I've done in the second chapter of my career is I help in the financial industry. There's the average age of people in our industry is 62 years old. And so they become exactly what you said. They become the role. And when they transition out, they have no identity outside of that. And so one of the things that I have to help them do and coach them through is actually help them in any industry. When you sell a business, you cannot be the business. And this happens with motherhood all the time, like moms, especially. Dads are less likely, although I don't have a lot of faith in the next generation of dads not to be like moms, but the moms of our past are the ones that their entire identity is their children. And then all of a sudden they find themselves without the kids in the house, and with their impact cannot be what they did. Their impact has to be who they are. And you said something super good, and that is they have to rediscover who they are. If they know who they are throughout and they can stay smooth with that understanding, the transition is easier. But it can't be easy if their impact is everything.
So for instance, let's look at that person. Let's look at a cop. Let's look at military. So if you have something outside of what you are, and I did not, but if, for instance, that stay-at-home mom, if she was continually developing herself on her own outside of her children, had something for herself, develop continuously, even if it was small or on the side, developing her own career, developing herself both mentally and physically, when that transition happens, there is a anchor, there is a foundational point of something that's external from what she normally did, right? So that's normal. That becomes normal. So like I was talking, one of my tier 1 clients, Mike Edwards, that goes by Mike the Cop. I don't know if you ever come across him. So no. We had that talk with him, and he said, honestly, I had jujitsu. So I think he did 11 years as a cop. And then he got to a point to where like, I don't think this is for me, the way that things are going, I'm having a hard time here. A lot of cops have an issue, just like military. When they leave that job, they kind of implode and drink and, struggle. He started jujitsu, I want to say about 6 years in. So he'd been doing about 5 years. So when he left that, there was something that was normal. Like what I did before, I still do now, right?
There's anchor. That anchor. It's like an anchor. Yeah. Okay.
It's an anchor. Yeah. So I challenge everyone to always have that anchor outside of what you do, something that's for you outside of that. I did not have anything. I was from 99 up when I was trying to go in, and then I joined in 2000, all the way to 2012. Man, I had nothing. I mean, yes, I was a husband, I was a father, I had 2 kids, two daughters. But man, there was nothing outside of that. I was granted, if you look at from 2000 to 2012, we were very heavy in the post 2001, very heavily in combat. So that was my focus, right? And my focus was just being on a team, doing the job, getting downrange as many times as I can, being as relevant and active as I can in that community. And so it cost me, because I went all in on that. And then when I left, I had this thought that like, well, you're a Marine for life. That's what they tell you. And you're MARSOC for life. You're a Raider for life. You're a Force Recon Marine for life. And essentially that's kind of, there's a sliver of truth to that. But the reality is the phone stops ringing, that kind of all goes to shit, that the military and that job, whether you're law enforcement, whatever it is, that job continues without you. And they just forget about you.
Every job does this. I mean, it's no different. When I left the company after 15 years, I thought it was like where I was going to be forever. And our friends would be the same friends. And all of a sudden the phone stops ringing and you have less in common. You have a couple people that stick around. You always have a couple, the cream rises to the top, but you're right. Every job, you realize it's just a job.
Just a job. And that's why it's so important to have that thing outside of that, to continue to develop yourself, to continue to learn, so that when things do change, you have that anchor, but if you don't have that anchor, you're going to need to find one real quick, because otherwise you're going to be real lost.
Yeah.
Which is okay. It's okay to be lost. It's not okay to be lost and stay there and build a house there and just live in this shithole of a place, mentally and spiritually and physically. But it's okay to be there. It's just now it's time to take action to move on, down the road in life. Because the reality is life can be freaking rad. Like it's I'm 40 years old. My life is more rad now than it ever has been. And that's the truth. Everybody's like, don't you wish you could go back? Hell no, I don't wish I can go back, man. I have a freaking badass life that I've built, but I built it from the ground up. I built it. And I think that's what people are missing. Like they're waiting for this thing to happen for them. They're waiting for this just amazing thing to happen organically. And the reality is that's not the way that works. You want an awesome life. You want an awesome job. You want an awesome relationship. You want an awesome wife. You want awesome kids. You got to go build that shit, man. You got to go make it.
And the first thing they have to do is really we have to figure out that we are where we're supposed to be at right now. Wherever you are, you're right where you're supposed to be. What you choose to do tomorrow is the next step. If you're not where you want to be financially, if you're not where you want to be health-wise, I mean, we talked about health earlier. It's probably I learned early on, I played sports all the time. And so I was playing soccer 3 times a week and basketball once a week and doing all these things. And then when you get busier with work, what you realize is you don't have time to do it every single day, but you still see it in your brain that you're doing it as much as you were. So I learned if I got a personal trainer, I had to show up to someone. I never missed that way. you have to find ways to be self-aware, to know how to trick yourself into keeping the facilities about you to make it work.
You know what you just labeled, Scott? The reason why that is what it is, and the reason why you have to have those things, and you probably got results. Accountability.
That's it.
We have to have accountability. It's just, that's why coaching works. That's why having a mentor works. That's why not going off on your own works, because you have to be accountable to someone. So like, if I don't have that, I have 4 different coaches right now. And I coach thousands of people a year. But the reason why I personally have, I feel like no coach should trust a coach that doesn't have one, because they practice what they preach.
Right.
Like, if I'm holding myself accountable to this person has to also be doing that as well. We're all human. So what happens when a man is on his own? He's like, well, I can slack off a little bit. No one's going to know. No one's going to know. I can do whatever I want. No one's going to know. The reality is, when you have a coach, there's this pride thing that's like, well, I don't want to show that I slacked off. I don't want to show up to the meeting and he goes, okay, did you get those 3 things done? No. Well, why? What were you doing? Well, nothing. Well, why are we here? Why are you paying me? That doesn't feel good.
No.
If this is not what you want, do we need to reevaluate that? Nobody wants to hear that. So when you have that accountability partner, that mentor that's holding you accountable, you all of a sudden start moving the needle in your life. And it might be small, it might be incremental, but over a period of time, you're like, holy shit, I'm way past my peers. Yeah, because you're chipping away at things. You're moving the needle in your life constantly. And it all comes from accountability. That also instills discipline. Discipline builds consistency. Consistency is the only thing that gets results. So there's an equation there.
That's right.
So
when you're building that habit, and when you build the habit, what happens is your body, your mind, your soul can't live without those things. Yeah. So no matter where you are, no matter where you go, you get to a point where you've built it as a part of your core value, your core principle. Mm-hmm. And if being healthy, eating a certain way, I've had people say, Scott, I'd rather die 10 years earlier than eat like you. And I'm like, well, that's okay. That's a good choice for you, but that's not the choice that I'm going to choose, because
and that will happen.
It will happen.
And this is what I'll say to those people.
Likely to happen. It never know what could happen, but ultimately the likelihood is definitely in that corner.
Yeah, percentage wise, that's probably going to happen. Here's the reality: is that individual that says that is a selfish motherfucker. You know why? Because it ain't all about him.
Right.
Because there's other people in that person's life that I guarantee, if they said that, would be pissed.
It'd be extremely disappointed in them. And you're right.
Yeah. So like, I don't do these things. I do these things so I can be the very best version of myself. Right. But by me being the very best version of myself is so that I can be around for the people who love me. And I can serve them on the levels that I need to serve them. For instance, one of the things that is really good for me is my morning cold exposure. Okay. It's just, I hate it. I hate the cold. I hate the freaking tub.
I do it every day, by the way. I love this. Yeah, I hate it too, but I love it. So keep going. I want to tell everybody about it.
The reason why, one, there's a lot of different benefits, right? There's a lot of different benefits, but I'll break it down. For me personally, I'll break it down what it does for me. 1, recovery. 2, it silences that inner bitch. It silences that, like, the inner critic that's in there. He gets shut up. It makes me more mentally resilient, meaning like I'm constantly doing hard things so that I become more mentally resilient. And the other thing is, Scott, to be 100% honest, one of the biggest things that it impacts me is my mood. I'm a grumpy dude. And the older I get, the grumpier I get. So this routine that I'm on, that I'm like ridiculous about, this routine is important to me, because when I'm on this routine, I wake up at 5 a.m. I do all my little steps. By 5:20, I'm doing the 3-minute dunk, right? I come out of that thing a completely different person. When my wife wakes up at, say she wakes up at 6 and I haven't done the cold tub, I'm like, don't talk to me. Just don't look at me. Don't talk to me. I don't want, like, why are you even existing in my space right now? You know what I mean? It's early. Yeah. I need my time. If she wakes up at, say, 5:30, and as I'm walking out of that cold tub, I'm like, hey, what's up? What we do today? You know what I mean? Like, let's get it. I'm a completely different person.
Because nothing can be harder. The bottom line is, when you do that, it is, I did 27 minutes of the sauna at 156 today and the infrared sauna. And then I have the cold tub right next to it. So I get in the cold tub.
I got the sunlight sauna.
Sunlight sauna, same one, same exact one.
Yeah.
So I get out of mine, I get into the cold plunge. And this morning, what I do is I started playing. I have an app, a meditation app, and a spiritual app I listen to. And there's a song, and I hit the song, and however long that song is, I stay in. And that's been my latest game. I play games with myself like this all the time, just to see.
Just like working on your breath and your mind and all that kind of stuff.
Just to be present. And so for me, everything you said is 100% real for me as well. The two things I think I'll add onto it are, for me, I struggle because I'm so peripheral. I feel and see the world around me so quickly, so much, and it's ADHD, it's whatever it is, high energy, but it centers me. It centers me for where, like, I literally sit in that tub. There's a tree that I look out the garage window and I see, and there's like 3 little blackbirds up there every day. Like, I literally look for those birds. I am zoned in to everything that's in my world, only in that space. It
forces you to stay present in that moment.
Correct.
Right.
And then the other thing is, like I said before, it's the hardest thing I'll do all day. So when something blows up on me in the middle of the day, or something as stupid as me feeling grumpy, like whatever it is, it's like, is it really that big of a deal? No, because I'm stinging. My whole body is uncomfortable. And for me, like, any autoimmune issues that existed, any inflammation that existed, all the little knee, gone. Like, totally fixing the things. But when I love it, I love to talk to people, because I'll be like, dude, my back is jacked up. My neck is jacked up. My system. I'm like, hey, have you thought about getting a sauna or maybe a cold? It's too expensive. No, the drugs you're taking are too expensive. The life you're killing is too expensive. Like, to go out and actually do something about it is so much more valuable.
Yeah. So for me, that's one of those so, like, and you know, in your day, you know, this is all stuff that I've learned over the decade, but, you know, I wake up at a certain time. By the time I've done that cold plunge, I've stacked like 4 or 5 wins for my day. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, I do. And that's where you start winning in your days, is when you're stacking wins. You're not just flying by the seat of your pants. You're intentional about your life. You're intentional about your day. And so, you know, I wake up, I weigh myself. I log that. I weigh myself every morning.
But do you use a Withings scale? What kind of scale are you using? Anything particular? Like, they have some pretty fancy ones now.
There's some fancy ones. Like, it's a decent fancy one, but not like crazy. I have tested almost every scale on the market, and the best one that I found, the most consistency that I've found, is this scale on Amazon from Vita Goods. It's like a $50 scale, and it's just super consistent. We push it out to all our clients. I've done scales that we've looked at the InBody one, because I have an InBody at our gym, my gym. And they have a home version. I've tried them all, and I'm like, and me and my teammate and business partner Josh Hansberger were like, dude, this $50 scale keeps winning.
It's just consistent.
Yeah.
Sorry for the aside, but I just felt like those are the little things that listeners can hear, and it really can make a big difference. So you're going through your discipline of your morning routine, and you feel like you're stacking wins.
Yep. So like I do the way I go weigh myself. I walk into the kitchen. I do my morning supplement regime. Actually, before that, I turn the sauna on. I do my morning supplement regime. I post in the morning roll in my coaching group. So we have this morning roll call. So it shows like 5:01. Everybody's like 5:01. They're all, so like first thing in the morning, I've got a whole roll of all these people taking selfies or posting time slots or whatever of
accountability.
Yeah, it's all accountability. And they're like posting quotes, and it's all, you know, before 6 a.m. they're all getting after it. Between 4 and 5:10, you know, almost the whole crew is up doing shit. You know what I mean? First thing in the morning before everybody else. So I post that in that group. Just because I have to lead the way as well. And then, you know, by the sauna's warmed up. I don't do the sauna first. I go straight into the cold plunge, and then I warm up in the sauna.
I mix it up. So sometimes I have a tonal in the garage and I'll work out. My challenge is I have free weights, a tonal. I have a bunch of different things. I don't go to a gym. I work out in my house because I struggle to get the day moving the way I need it to.
Yeah.
Long story short, I mix it up. So some days I finish the workout, dunk, and then warm up. This bald head of mine doesn't shave itself. So if I have to shave the head, then I got to get in the sauna. I got to get in the sauna first, sweat, then get in the cold to go ahead and close it up a little bit, so I'm not sweating as I go to try to shave my head. So anyway, but I agree. So you get in the sauna after you've done your regime.
And then I warm up, and then I'll reply to, you know, I get in the sauna for like 20 minutes, warm back up. And then, you know, and while I'm in there, I'm, you know, doing some content creation, like post and some copywriting and stuff like that. Some stuff that's on my mind, or replying to potential Agoge clients. And that's it. And by like, you know, 5:30, 5:45, I've done more shit in that time and stacked more wins than most people do in an entire day. And they're not big, right? So those aren't like way crazy wins.
But they are big, because the thing is, that's what you have prioritized in your life, because you know it's the stackable win that becomes 10 times. But
like if I'm talking to someone who, the reason why I say they're not big wins, right?
Oh, because they're little.
I'm talking to someone who is not there. They're not on our level. They're not on that, you know. And so I'm talking to them. I'm like, listen, man, tomorrow when you wake up, do one thing that you consider a win. Maybe it's a 5-minute walk. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk. Maybe it's 100 push-ups. Maybe it's just going and taking a protein shake the first thing, so you're trying to get your protein in for the day. You know what I mean? If we're just starting from scratch, like you're the guy that's like scrolling on your phone 8 hours a day, or doing bullshit, or just not being intentional, not being present with your family, the whole 9 yards, like we just need to start with a small win for the day. If we're depressed, hey, get off the couch, go do 50 squats, 50 push-ups. That's a win, man. So when you start doing that, because I have to remember, I wasn't always this guy. I was the guy that was down in the dumps. I was the guy that was, you know, screen sucking and, you know, not making money and just losing everything, you know, damn near lost my whole life, my life from suicide. So like, you have to put yourself in that, you know, that empathy a little bit. You don't have to get down in the hole with them, but essentially you have to say, listen, we have to start somewhere. So simply weighing yourself every day, creating that habit, doing your morning supplement routine every single day, you know, doing some sort of morning mobility, going on a walk, getting some vitamin D in the eyes with the sunlight, something so small, stacking them over a period of time can crazily change your life. But it's those small little habits that will compound.
So what I feel that's underrated is that, you know how you come home in the past when you weren't doing this, you come home and you feel like you had no time for yourself all day. I know people feel this way. So you'd come home and you're like, dude, I have done everything for everybody but me. And it's now 9:30 at night. And you end up staying up watching sports or a movie, or now it's 12 o'clock. You're exhausted. You're zoned out on your phone, and you end up going to sleep. You get bad sleep. You start the process all over again tomorrow. Here's what this does that nobody talks about. What this does is I go to bed earlier. I feel better. I feel like I accomplished everything for myself because I started with myself in the morning. And that's what you're doing every day when you're following that regime. I love it because it took away my ability to need to stay up longer. So my Whoop doesn't yell at me anymore. It tells me, dude, you got full recovery.
It's not even that. It's like, it's just one of those non-negotiable things, because I know the difference of how I perform in a day versus when I don't, you know what I mean? I just know what, and then I'm a grumpy person. Then I'm not being nice to my wife and kids or my employees, or I'm not able to have the energy that I need to serve them. So on that, I'm going to take it a step further, Scott. That guy that doesn't live with stacking wins, living with intention, that guy that's not doing that, and he's like, well, I can't go to the gym because my wife stay at home, or I got to pick up the kids and I got to do this. And so, you know, it'd be nice to go to the gym, but I just can't do that because, you know, everybody needs something from me. So I got to go home and take care of them. But the reality is, you're going home and you're there and you're telling them to go sit in the corner, or go play, or go screen stuck on an iPad. And what do? You go grab a beer, you sit on the couch and you stare at a wall, or you play on your phone, or you put some bullshit on television, because you're mentally exhausted. You're tapped.
Yeah, you're done.
You're done. You don't have the capacity to give into anything. So you're the dad that shows up and he puts his feet up and starts, drinking beer and playing on his phone at 5:30, 6 p.m. How do you think that compounding is going to happen in your life? I'll tell you. You're going to continue to gain weight. You're going to get type 2 diabetes. You're going to get heart disease. And I know this because I onboard, hundreds of clients with the Agogi. So I hear all the same issues, and I laugh, and I kind of laugh because it's all fixable. But this is the difference. When I put guys on our plan, when I tell them when they get off work, you dig down deep. You dig down real deep, because you should be tired, because you went and worked. You went and put out in your life. You were intentional. So yeah, that's called effort. The price of success in this life is pain, misery, and suffering. And if you're going to be a dad in this world and be successful, guess what? You're going to be tired. Not tired because there's a problem, tired because of the effort that you're putting forth in your day. So when you walk through the door, I want you to try this exercise. And I know it works because I just know. When you walk through the door, you're done with work, or maybe even work from home, like one of my offices at home. And I walk out this door and I go, hey, what do you guys need? How can I serve you? Am I tired? I'm exhausted. Doesn't matter. Dig down deep. I muster the energy. Do I need to go play with this kid? Do I need to go on a walk? Do we need to go play in the pool? Do we need to get in the hot tub? Do we need to go play with trucks? Do you need me to help cook dinner? Do I need to take the trash out? What do you guys need? I'm here to serve. If men pivoted to that thought process, or when they do, their life is exponentially better. Now we can get into like the rewards of that. And I have a client that's funny. I told him, I said, hey, listen, first of all, it ain't about you. All that shit you do is so that you can be the best husband, father, and man in their world, right? Oh, yes. I know that's true, because you said when we did our coaching call and we wrote down our top 4 priorities, that was the very top 4 priorities. Most people's priorities when I do this drill, money is like number 4, or even not even in the top 4 priorities. But then I look at their routine and it completely contradicts what their top 4 priorities are. So now I tell them, hey, Steve, I want you to walk through the door and I want you to go, hey, what do you guys need? How can I serve you? And I want you to consistently do that for a couple weeks and watch what happens to your life. Watch how they interact with you. Watch the rewards that you get, and I'll say it, in and out of the bedroom.
Big wins everywhere. Big wins everywhere. Yeah, because they're stepping outside of themselves. When you let the ego gets in the way, it's like anything. If you're having the shittiest day in the world, the bottom line is the fastest way to shift your day is to move it. Yeah, ego is that. Yeah, perfect. I love the Stoic mentality. Ryan Holiday's great. All the books are phenomenal, but the ego gets in the way.
It does.
And what you do is you shut the ego down the fastest when you serve someone else. I've got a question, because this is super interesting, and it's something I think about a lot. The new family dynamic. And I say the new family dynamic because I think you probably grew up a lot like I did, in the sense that I grew up in a 2-parent home, but my dad was a man. My dad was a dad. Like, my dad's generation to my generation, stuff exponentially changed. My dad didn't change diapers. He didn't babysit. He didn't carpool. He didn't, nothing. And then I woke up and got married. I've been married 20 years in May.
Congratulations.
And I'm very blessed. I got a great wife who let me grow up as a part of our marriage, but which is true. But the truth is, like, all of a sudden I was feeding the kid bottles, and I was waking up in the middle of the night, and I was still trying to be the man and the dad and produce and perform and protect. I think that it's really interesting nowadays, and I want your insight on this, and I want your opinion, because I think this is a conversation men should be talking about today. I feel like I'm seeing more dads that want to be a second mom today than dads that want to be a dad. There's still some value in being the father and being a different, you don't have to, I don't mean you have to be the old version, because that's not, that old version's kind of dead. The expectations are dead. So
that's
it's never, and to be honest with you, that's not always the best expectation. I mean, if you think about it, I'm closer with my sons than I ever could have been if I was the old version of a dad. I love taking my kids and doing stuff that I did used to.
And like, what is their ability to come to you and talk to you versus you back at that age going to talk to your dad about something?
Said nothing.
You wouldn't do it. You wouldn't go to him. You're like, no, I'm not asking him.
No, but there's a line. And what I'm asking you on is just a couple of opinions on, I'm not making a statement to say one's better than the other, but I'm saying that there's a struggle that men feel when that guy walks in and he goes and cracks the beer. There's a part of him that may feel tired and may feel all the things we talked about. There's also a part of men today that sometimes feel like they are doing things that are less natural for them, and it's harder for them to step out of some of these zones. And I hear this a lot with young fathers, where they kind of had this expectation going in, and it's not what they expected. So I'm just interested in your viewpoint.
You have to kind of even go back further to like their partner. What were their values as a man? What was their significant other values as a woman? Well, who were they as people before going into that? Did you even pick the right partner?
Right.
You know, or is your partner expecting you to be a second mom? Like, that's going to cause a problem, right? I'm not into that. I don't need to be a second mom. A good friend of mine says we work together and run the program called a Squire program. I don't know if you ever seen that.
Is this with the father sons?
Yes.
Yeah, I did see it. It looks awesome.
Yeah, I'm going to go be a surrogate dad January 14th in Chino Hills, because there's a 12-year-old boy without a father. So I'm going to go step in and be his mentor and be his surrogate father to go take him through the Squire program.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, here's the deal. Mothers turn babies into boys. We need fathers to turn boys into men. To give you an example, okay? I have no problem. I'm a great dad when it comes to babies. I have a 21-year-old daughter, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I've got a 2-year-old little boy. Okay. So I have quite the gap, and I got a Universal Soldier in the fridge for 2023 that we're going to pop in.
Okay. All right.
That's also a boy. So for instance, you remember the old thing, hey, why am I doing this? Because I said so. That, to me, I get a lot of flack for this, but that's the most bullshit answer ever. If you're a parent and you say, because I said so, you're just lazy. You're lazy. And the reason you're lazy is this: that child is giving you an opportunity to lead them. They're giving you an opportunity to teach them. And if you can't articulate the reason why you want them to do something, well, then maybe the reason is stupid. Maybe the kid's right. Maybe this is dumb. So with my 2-year-old, this blew my mind, where he's 2.5. Well, January would be 2.5.
June birthday?
August.
August, okay.
Yeah. So he, like, we put him to bed, and then he gets up and comes in, gets up and walks out of his door and comes in. I'm like, little shit. I'm like, nope, go back to bed. So I started to do this thing where I started to communicate with him when he's like not doing what I want him to do. And this is a 2.5-year-old. I take him to bed and I sit on the side of his bed and I talk to him and I say, hey, buddy, we've got to go to sleep now because we're funny. Like we do ab checks in the mirror. I'm a 2.5-year-old. We're doing ab checks. We're pulling our shirt up and doing ab checks. We talk about how much protein we're going to eat. We talk about building muscles. He's been in the gym since he was 1 week old. This is just his world.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, buddy, reason we got to go to sleep now because, we worked out good. We had a busy day. Now we need to recover. We're going to wake up. We're going to have a bottle and a movie. We're going to do our morning routine. Then your nanny's going to show up. You're going to, what is it called? Like, book reading or something at the library. So we got to have our rest so that we can recover, make sure our muscles get big. And I explained the whole thing of what he's going to do and then what we're going to do tomorrow. Literally the words out of his mouth. Oh, okay. All right. I'm like, all right, bud. Love you. See you in the morning. Go to sleep. Every single time that he freaks out about, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I go, hey, whoa. And I explain it to him. He literally goes, oh, okay. And that's it. He walks out. Done. But how many kids you're like, hey, don't walk on that side of the road, or don't do this, or don't wear that clothes, or don't wear this. And you're like, why? Because I said so. How about you take the time and actually parent, actually teach, and explain the reasons why you make the decisions that you make to protect them from the weather, from evil people, their money, whatever it may be, the dangers of the world. Why am I doing this? Why am I telling you? Well, because this is what's going to happen. This is what happens in the world when you do those things. Now, some things obviously are going to have to be learned by experience, and there's failures that have to take place in a young person's life for them to know on their own. And I get all that. But the simple thing of just going, because I said so, are not educating them or not teaching them the reasons why, I think is just lazy. It's just lazy. And the more that we can communicate with our kids and get them to understand the point of view that we're coming from as parents and the wisdom that we have, especially if I do it if at 2, if I'm doing it now, what's going to happen when he's 16? He's going to be like, oh, dad always communicates with me. He always explains to me why.
Right.
So when he tells me to do something, there's a reason. He always has a reason.
I think you brought it full circle, because what you'll find is that saying because I said so is lazy, but it's also because it's that father that walked in tired, that cracked the beer, that's not mentally prepared or able. It's not always a choice. It is a choice, don't get me wrong, but it's not always the response they want. It's the response that happens because they haven't set their day up for success.
Right.
That is nothing says your disciplined morning routine, my disciplined morning routine has a better result than not feeling as tired when you walk in the door.
Right.
That helps.
I can show you hundreds of messages that I get from people that want to come on our coaching program. And I don't mean to be pushing that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just,
no, it's good to talk about what you do. This is perfect. This is what I want to hear.
But Scott, that's the commonality. These guys that are hurting, these grown men our age are like, man, I'm tired of not living up to my potential. I'm tired of not having the energy to play with my kids. So the guy sitting on the couch drinking the beer, not pouring into his kids and his wife, like, you're right. There is an inner dialogue going. He knows he should be doing more. He just is exhausted and doesn't have the recipe to do it. Doesn't know how to set it up to where he can be successful. And almost, I would say 95%. And I ask him, if somebody messages me or texts me and says, hey, I want to join, why? Why? Because why matters, right? Because like, if you want to join, you're like, well, I just want to look good naked. That ain't going to get you out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, Holmes. Hate to break it to you. Like,
and you won't do it long enough. You won't do it long enough if that's your only reason, because you've been comfortable with your ass looking that bad for way too long. So don't lie to me and tell me that's what you're going to fix this. Every person that starts the gym in January 1st that is doing it strictly for looking better has lied to themselves, because they will quit within 3 weeks.
Right. And that's it. And I tell them, like, hey man, if you can't, cause I'm going back and forth with them, like, hey, if we can't find a deeper reason than just looking, at you're like, well, I'm, being selfish. I'm tired of being this way. I'm like, listen, brother, like, I'm telling you right now, I won't even onboard you. I won't even take you as a client, because I know you're not going to make it. You're going to quit.
Yeah. It sounds like they're still being selfish. They're still being selfish. If you are doing this only for you, this is another full circle conversation. If you're doing it only for you, Nick said this earlier in the conversation, you are being selfish. That's the reason you choose to do bigger and better things. It's got to have someone else in mind.
So the guys that go, listen, man, like, I know that I'm not being the husband, I'm not being the father, I'm not being the man that I'm supposed to be. And like, I need to be, I'm overweight, I got type 2 diabetes, and I need to be around for them. They rely on me, and I just know that I got to do better. Sold. You're in. Here's the stipulations. This is what we do. Fill out this link. You're in. Come on. Let's fix it. Those are the guys that I want. That's it. But it's crazy, man. 95% of the people that message me are the ones, they're saying, that's all they say. I'm failing as a husband. I'm failing as a father. I'm failing as a man. Because they hear the conversations that I'm having. They see the results that we get, and they go, that's the high level individual that I want to be. And I'm not living up to that. So when you said, like, I'm worried about the future generation of fathers, yes, I am. But we are actively, like, I see a turn, especially because of the last 2 years. As shitty as it was for businesses, for the country, and everything that happened over the last 2.5 years, I see it as a good thing. I really do see it as a good thing, because it highlighted a lot of people that were asleep, that were just coasting through life, doing the bare minimum for themselves. I think what it's done is it's created an awareness in men of where they're at physically and mentally and spiritually, that the ones that have identified it are now doing something about it. And I think what it's doing now is I've started to see a wave of men kind of waking up, taking responsibility again, and making some positive life choices for themselves and their families, because they got manipulated. They got manipulated, and they manipulated their families, and now they're manipulating their kids. And men are waking up going, not anymore. Well, and it starts with the father.
Leaders.
I'm a firm believer in that.
You have to be a leader as the father of your family. Are you good for just a little bit longer? Or you want to? Okay.
Good.
So it's really interesting, because I think the last couple of years did do that. And I think seeing how people respond in hard times, the founding fathers said, we are soldiers, so our children can be teachers, so their children can be artists. Mm-hmm. And now they stopped. And the point, though, is every generation of artists needs a generation of soldiers to clean up the bullshit that happened before.
That they created,
because there's nothing better than the artists that are creative. But if you think as a man, you can be just a creative, weak artist and not be a leader of your family, and not be able to push through challenging times, teach our men that these are the things that people want to see. This is a really big challenge. And a lot of this comes back to what you're trying to do with the Squire program and some of these other programs. What I know you're trying to do is you're trying to introduce them to tough things, challenges, prepare them, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly it. There's this concept that happiness is retirement, or happiness is a pina colada or a Corona on the beach, is essentially a lie. We all are striving for this, this mystical relaxation point that we, whether it's the mountains, whether it's the beach, whether it's the view, doesn't matter what it is, but this relaxation thing that we put our feet up and we've achieved these results, and now we're happy by sitting there. Yeah, you're happy. It's a beautiful moment. You're happy for the however long it takes for you to drink your hot cocoa or your Corona or whatever it is. but then that's it. If you really look at the people that do something more real difficult, if you run even at the level of like, I've never ran a 5K, so I'm going to go run a 5K. That feeling of completion of running a 5K, a Spartan race, going through a selection process, all the dumb, hard shit that I've done in my life, I was actually the most rewarded and most happy with the hardest, like when I have my whole feet are just one blister. I can barely walk. My back is jacked. I'm sunburnt, dehydrated, and I get done. And I'm like, holy shit, I feel amazing.
You feel alive.
I feel alive.
Like you're living.
I feel like I've achieved things. That feeling, and anybody who's done some sort of race or a Spartan race or something like that, some sort of challenge, that feeling of excitement, that feeling of accomplishment, that comes from all the hard things. You don't get that from going on vacation. You don't get that going on vacation. You get that from doing really, really miserable shit. And but that's and so that's for me. Going back to the cold plunge, like I go do miserable shit. I get out of it. Like you said, that's the hardest thing that I'm probably going to do today. You know what I mean? Like I'm just won the day. It's 5:20 in the morning.
And I owned it. I did it to myself. At the end of the day, I chose it. I succeeded. I conquered. I came out. And I now have the ability to build off of that. And so it's anything that you're doing. When I wrote my book, Nick, it was really interesting. They asked me before I start, I was going through the brainstorm process and somebody said, I want you to think of all the times you failed.
Yeah.
And I started writing down all these things. I talked to my wife. She added a bunch of big ones, things I forgot.
You want to know how you failed? Just ask your wife.
Huge ones. Right. And, but they were pinnacle moments that I had almost forgotten about. When you started stacking all of them and I looked at the trajectory, there were two things I found most interesting. Number one, there were so many that I had just forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, they all were like a line moving upward, connecting the dots of exactly where I was today that made me who I am. And they were the challenges that made me that.
I was going to say, I have this saying, if you show me somebody successful, I'll show you the same man who failed 15 times for that one success. And so there's so many people that are afraid to move the needle forward because of the fear of failure. And I'm like, they're like, hey, if I do this, I want to do this, but I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I'm like, okay, you're going to fail. This is your first try? Yeah, you're going to fail. So what are you going to do? Well, I guess I won't do it. No, actually, that's not my advice. My advice is that you're going to fail. You should do it anyway. And then I explained to him, I said, listen, for you to be successful, you're going to have to fail 15 times. So the quicker and faster, whatever you want to say, that you can get through those 15 failures, the faster you're going to get to your success. So you got to lean into those failures. You got to lean into them. They're not failures. They're tuition payments. They're experience. Now, of course, you don't have to have 15 failures. You can get a coach and you can compress time and you can solve problems faster. And, you're still going to have some bumps in the roads, but you don't have to have that many things, especially if you get a mentor and a coach and, solve a lot of those problems for you. But the reality is you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You're going to fail at everything. But the more you fail, the more success is going to come on the back end of that. So don't be afraid. As Tony Blair says, fear is nothing more than false expectations appearing real. That's where anxiety comes from. That's where fear comes from. It's all this. It's a fear of this future thing that hasn't happened yet. Hasn't even happened yet. So what are you afraid of?
Yeah. Dude, I had a conversation with, I was at a conference and there was literally, let's say 100 people in the room and one guy was wearing a mask. And I know the guy that was wearing a mask. And so we're sitting outside and he comes and sits next to me and he takes the mask off. And I asked him, I said, I got to ask you a question, dude. And I don't mean this to be rude. I'm not trying to judge you. I just need to understand
where your head's at.
What are you afraid of?
Yeah.
And he said, dude, I know it's stupid. Like, it was such a great conversation because he goes, I know it's stupid. I know that it's challenging, but my kids, like, what happens? And I said, okay, what happens if your kids, he's like, well, I know statistically they'll be fine. I was like, okay, so what else? And then he was like, my wife is just so, and I said, okay, what else? And he started laying them all out. And I was like, dude, you are the only person in a room full of 100 people wearing a mask right now. And I don't know if you understand what that looks like, but I said, it's okay. If that's what you, if you told me you had cancer and you're the only guy in the room wearing a mask, I got your back, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that there could be a good reason, which is why I asked. But I said, well, I want you to go. He's getting ready to go for a run. I said, I want you to go upstairs and I want you to write down what you're afraid of on a piece of paper. And before you go out, I want you to write down what you're afraid of. And I want you to look at it and tell me you don't laugh at yourself, because you're going to laugh at yourself.
Yeah,
and he goes upstairs, and I'm literally coming down the elevator. I see this dude walk by in these shorts and running outfit, no mask. I was like, dude, you ditched the mask to go for a run? He's like, I wrote him down. I felt stupid. Thanks, dude. But it's everything you just talked about. Like, that is the ultimate point, is that sometimes our fears are so much bigger in our head, but when we actually put them down on paper, or you share them with somebody, or you talk them through, you've self-talked yourself into complete paralyzation. And it's just not the way to be.
Well, and the biggest thing is, you're allowing, again, it goes back to external factors. You're allowing other people to manipulate and control your thoughts. Like, if you want to be afraid of this mystical thing, and it doesn't have to be the thing, it could be something else. It could be whatever, riding a bike. I don't care. Losing money, going bankrupt. It doesn't really matter what it is. But if you're going to allow this, either external factors, this other person to tell you this, to manipulate your actions and your well-being, well, then what do you expect your life's going to look like? Like, when is enough to where you're going to be the captain of your ship? Like, what kind of life do you want?
It's the opposite of freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a caged world that you're living in. You talked about the discipline in the military and the transition. The thing is, we know that discipline equals freedom, whether it's morning routine, whether it's prioritizing who's most important, whether it's making an impact beyond yourself and getting rid of the ego. These are all things that take discipline, right? Well, the opposite of discipline is chaos. And if you let other people control your life, and you are that one guy who has not really looked around to see what is actually happening in the room, you are living in fear and no freedom. That means it's chaos. It's chaos in your brain. It's chaos in your life. And we want to help people get better at that. That's why we have these types of conversations, because if there's one person that's listening to this that could actually make a change.
And it happens every time. Every single one of these conversations changes one person's life. And that's the snowball effect that I've seen over the past 2.5 years. And I'm like, oh, we've got to, they went on the offensive with chaos. Well, I'm going to go on the offense of the other side. I'm going to make fathers superheroes again. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. I want to see guys in their 40s and 50s ripped and financially stable and mentally, like, just on another level, operating at a higher frequency, that are just badass fathers, badass husbands, and badass leaders. And they're just jacked and ripped. And guess what?
And they feel good about themselves.
Those people, Scott, can't be controlled. You can't control those individuals. And if men were meant to, if we had this 2.5 years ago as a whole, if men as a community were like this, like we were talking about, doing the things that we do, talk about the things that we do, have the morals that we do. And I'm not talking left or right. I'm talking about your family. I'm talking about yourself. Having self-accountability, having discipline, what's best for you and yours. That's it. If we had a community of men that were all on the same page, there's no way in the world you would have been able to pull off what they pulled off in the last 2 years, 2.5 years.
Fool me once.
Yeah.
Fool me twice. It's on me. So at the end of the day, this is the key is politics doesn't matter. It's about strength. No. That was the beautiful thing about what has happened, is that you saw families that they were watching their children not get schooled properly. You saw kids falling behind. And, we've got friends that took their kids out. My son went to Catholic school. They never missed a day of school. Now, they were in school for the year that everybody was out, but the last part of the first year, they were out, but they never missed a day. They had online, they went immediate. And then when they went back, I had friends pull their kids out and send them to that school just so that they could be in an environment to learn. These are all choices that we make to better our own family unit, to protect, to provide. That's what people do. That's what
at the end of the day, for the guys that are listening, it ain't about all this that I'm saying. It's just not about you. The reason why you have to be your very best at every level is for that you can serve your tribe. That's the why. At the end of the day, like, we have to be, I love this saying. I think my mother-in-law sent it to me. I said, the measure of a really good man is the old man who plants trees for his family to sit in the shade that he'll never sit in. Like, he does stuff for his generation, for his tribe, that he'll never even get the return of investment on. And if we think like that generationally, what does that do?
It's exponential.
You can't beat. That's something you can't beat. You can't beat that.
No, it's exactly what's needed. Nick, how do people find you, and what are the things you're working on right now that people can pay attention to?
The business stuff. Yeah. So, first and foremost, I have the fastest growing organic grooming company for men called Johnny Slicks. So we do all kinds of organic. It's completely American made, American sourced. Nothing's outsourced. We employ a bunch of people in the community. It's a family. We believe in American made. We believe that needs things that are happening with like Origin Maine and these other companies that are really building up and growing. We have the same morals, and we want to provide jobs for the community. So as people have pushed us to outsource more stuff, we just said, nope, we're not doing it. We're building internally, we're building the community, and we want to employ more people. So we are the fastest growing organic grooming company, owned by two veterans. And outside, that's called Johnny Slicks. And then on top of that, you've got the Agogi, which is our coaching company. We do a lot of it is fitness based, but it's fitness based off of the foundational pillar of fitness. So we believe that men operate at a higher frequency when they're physically fit. So I think you said it says too, like, you're going to build your business, you got to do all this stuff. Well, we got to fix the man first. If you don't fix the man, then you can't do anything else. So we fix the man first, and then we scale everything else. That's kind of our mentorship program there. We have a 30-day challenge starting on January 1st. So you can DM me on any social media, the word challenge, and I can send you a link for that. And then I'm a managing partner. I'm a managing partner with a HRT clinic. We're a nationwide clinic that treats low testosterone and a bunch of other things with health and longevity of life. So that's Core Medical Group. And the last is I'm a partner in my jiu-jitsu gym here locally. So talking about hard things, wake up every day and go get your ass kicked by a bunch of grown men every day for an hour. That'll make you feel real good.
It'll humble you. Nick, it's been an honor to have you, man. The conversation's great, man. I definitely could have this conversation anywhere, anytime again. And I look forward to bumping into you in the future. Thanks for sharing the wisdom and the nuggets with all of our guests today. And everybody, look him up, man. Follow him. If you need a reboot for 2023 or any year into the future, man, this is the time to do it, man. He's going to give it to you. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.